of Career Activities and Guidance Center. I would like to thank everyone for joining in today. This is our first session of our series DISHA 2022, and we will be having multiple sessions in the coming times. Now, I would like to invite Dr. JD Sharma, Head of Career Development and Guidance Center, to acknowledge our first and second year students and officially launch our series DISHA 2022.
Thank you, Nishant. Good evening, everyone. I'm seeing you are in good numbers present here. I expect more of you to be the part of any such initiative that this Office of Career Development and Guidance Center undertake. Because you are the new entrants, you have not been to the office. So I think I'll take these 3 minutes to just introduce the activities of CDGC, how you people can get associated with this office if you want to, like some activities we do as Nishchay is conducting something. Nishchay is conducting today's workshop. Likewise, there are a lot many other activities by which we associate the students of PEC with this office. And second, what actually we deliver through CDGC. Welcome to PEC and CDGC activity of DISHA 2022. DISHA 2022 is one of many programs that we run for our first year, second year, and third year students. In addition to the internships we offer to third year student and placements we offer to the final year students. Altogether, CDGC provides a gamut to all the students who are the part of PEC. We try to build one-to-one relation with the student, starting from the point where we introduce you to the new careers in engineering and the careers beyond engineering. Career in engineering in my office is not limited just to the placements. Career in engineering is all possible career which an engineer can undertake, which primarily nowadays are including a lot of entrepreneurial activities by the engineers in their pre-final or final years. Some people undertake it second year also. It also includes some of the opportunities that you people have in higher studies here in India or abroad. The most rewarding higher studies which generally been taken by the students here at PEC is their degree, further degrees in management in India and abroad, as well as some research opportunities here in IITs or some state-of-art labs of the country and also abroad. So these are two new domains which have been added. In addition to this, there are a lot of students who are really interested for some competitive studies, like in civil services. We do take a few sessions last year on that account, but I think even this stream will be more vibrant this time. We'd like to invite some of the authorities in the area who can help you to at least give an insight in first and second year of your career, of your engineering, that what are the possible opportunities and what are the basic strength you desire, it is required by the stream to pursue a career in a specific domain. Competitive examinations are very, very common nowadays. So another aspect is that we equip you with a lot of skills which are generally the part of some common entrance or the examination that you take after the engineering. In addition to that, we try to give you a full-fledged program of 4 days, which is called pre-placement training session, which is a grooming session, which will give you a lot of ideas how you should prepare yourself for the interviews in internship, as well as in placements, or in between any individual effort you undertake during your second year or during your first year, that how you can crack the interviews. The aim of DISHA 2022 is very clear. We have looped in some of the illustrious but more recent alumni of PEC who have really made a mark by cracking into few domains which is most desired in the country now. So there will be series of lecture which are going to be the part of this event. I urge all of you to sincerely participate in such activities. What outcome do I expect from you students? First year and second year student, you should be very inquisitive to understand what is available for me, how I need to prepare. Second, what are the basic elements that I need to ingrain in myself so that I should get the success at a higher rate. So for that, why we have called the alumni, and that too very recent, there is a basic idea behind it. The basic idea is that you should come to know what is the most recent requirement of the market. You can be so dynamic that you can say that may or may not be required after 3 years or 2 years when you appear, but try to acknowledge the fact that things do not change that fast as you expect, and absolutely do not change as slow. Sometime you start like you thinking for. So I think the recent past gives you a better opportunity to dream. I feel that you connect them well. You can share very well. Were you been in the same stage when you were in first year and second year? After this day, when you have cracked a milestone, you can ask your speakers. You know, alumni base of PEC has always been very, very helpful for all the students, any help they need. And I urge all of you to make best use of it. Enjoy to be the part of PEC. Feel proud to be the part of PEC. Once you show in your conversation that there is something good that you feel about PEC, the person whom you're talking with, he induces the same for PEC in his mind, whether he is your alumnus or not. So this is a good opportunity where you can connect yourself with the alumni, with the tradition, and also with the legacy of PEC, and start feeling a part of a 100-year legacy from the very first year of your engineering. Now my last words to welcome the speakers of the day, as well as rest of the speakers who are coming up for this session, as well as few of the activities that are going to come up in the next week. I welcome you all here. You have been the part of PEC, and I think you know what you feel when you were there in first year and what actually is to be given to these students at this stage, so that they should dream big like you people achieved. And next, thanks to Nishchay and his team. You people make things happen even when I feel that these things are going to be difficult to be managed, but in a short interval, you manage to do all those things. Well done, Nishchay and their team. My core team of CDGC also work hand in hand with all the activities which my office undertakes. I congratulate all the members of core team as well as my extended PR team, which generally consists of PCRs and TCRs of all departments. I hope this Disha 22 is going to be very, very successful, interactive, and informative. Uh, Successful and informative depends upon the speaker and the organizers, but interactive, it can only be successful if my first year and second year students they join the session actively. They will not be two big sessions, they will be small sessions. Come into the room, because keep yourself undisturbed for the session, and just write down, keep pen and page also, keep a notebook whenever such sessions comes up, sum them up in a small booklet or a notebook, because in a subsequent time these are going to be a guiding lines for you people when there will be the time of anxiety a day before appearing an interview, a week before preparing for a test, or the time when you are waiting a new company is going to come. Thanks a lot for inviting me. Nishchay, I think you can take over. I hope this session is going to be very, very useful to all of you.
Thank you, sir. So now that we all have a fair idea about what CDGC does, let's move on to the part that you've all been waiting for. Here we have three recent graduates of PEC here with us who got placed in Google, which is the dream company of almost all students. We have Sakshi, Kshitij, and Akshit here with us today. And through this session, we'll be navigating their journey to Google. First, we have Akshit Monga, a final year student from Computer Science and Engineering. He's one of the most impressive students of our entire batch with a string of accolades under his belt. He interned with Deutsche Bank and was one of the first students of our batch to bag an internship. He was the winner of the JP Morgan Quant Challenge and the Amexpert Hackathon. He also has a 6-star rating on CodeChef and is an expert on code forces. He has also been a problem setter for multiple rated contests on CodeChef. On that note, I'd like to invite him and share his experience firsthand. Akshit?
Hello. Thank you, Nishchay and CDGC for inviting me to this session. And also thanks to Ishika for this lovely introduction. So I'm Akshit. I'm currently in fourth year and I've recently got a job offer from Google for a software engineering role. And today I'm here to talk about my journey from like starting first year. So when I joined college in first year, I didn't have any knowledge about coding and I did not get good grades in the core subjects. But during second year, I started practicing on CodeChef. A friend of mine recommended CodeChef and I started doing its long challenges. Back then, the long challenges used to be 10 days and this was ample amount of time for anyone to solve algorithmic problems and improve his or her skills. So I started doing them. This improved my logical skills as well as coding and debugging skills. So this challenge was the one which I started, and after that, I've never stopped giving competitive coding challenges. I still give them nowadays because I definitely enjoy giving them, and I definitely recommend anyone who is starting out his coding journey to give it. So, in the second year, hello, am I audible?
Yes,
Yes,
yes, yes.
you are.
Please.
Yeah. So, and in 2020 and 2021, when we were all at homes in pandemic, I started giving Google Kickstart rounds. So Google conducts its three coding competitions: Google Kickstart, CodeGem, and Hashcode. Kickstart and CodeGem rounds, they have algorithmic problems, the standard algorithmic problems, and Hashcode has an optimization problems. You can explore about these. And like before, I gave them regularly in 2020 and 2021. And before starting of the internship session, I did revise the CS fundamentals like object oriented programming and DBMS and operating systems. and did some interview centric problems on Geeks for Geeks, and I was able to bag internship at Deutsche Bank. This was an on-campus opportunity. I'll briefly describe the interview process, which is like the standard interview process for most of the companies. There is first an online assessment. So they screen people from that OA, and after that there are interview rounds. So I had two technical interview rounds, and one was HR. In technical interview rounds, they mostly focus on your DSA skills, your CS fundamentals, your projects, and your communication skills as well. So after that, in technical round, you have an HR round where they check if you are fit for that organization culturally. And then I got the offer from Deutsche Bank. And before starting out my internship, I had ample amount of time, so I did continue competitive programming on various online judges, Code Chef, Code Forces. I did a lot of contests, and that improved a lot of my thinking skills and improved my speed as well. During internship, when the internship started, my main goal was to get PPO, which I was able to achieve. So whenever you are doing your internship, you should properly interact with your team. You should do your tasks regularly, and also like interact with your mentors as well. Okay, I was able to get the PPO, and after that, again, I wanted to get achieve something bigger as well. So I looked for various companies, and I applied. Google has an opening in, like, Google had an opening in September or October generally. So I applied on Google Careers website with the referral in September, and I'll talk about the process as well. Like in September, I applied, and I was contacted by a recruiter in October, and he wanted to invite me for the interviews. So he asked about my few details, he asked me about updated resume, and like my CGPA, my preferred language, and my availability for the interviews. One thing more, like CDGC conducts a Kickstart Roadshow. It happened in 2021. I'm not sure if it happens every year, but if it does happen, you should definitely join that. It is a fun event which has like Googlers from India, and there's a fun session where you interact with them and also solve some algorithmic problems with them. So yeah, continuing with the interview experience, the I shared everything, and there was a small meeting where the recruiter explained everything about the interview process. The interview process is not very fixed. Like, it depends. Last year it was a bit different, and this year it was a bit different. There was no online assessment for me. I directly had a telephonic round, and after that I had 3 on-sites. Last year, the on-sites, there were 4 on-sites, 4 technical rounds, 4 on-sites, and one googliness round as well. But this year they have combined the googliness round with the virtual on-sites, and there is no difference between the telephonic round and the virtual on-sites. It was mostly the same. Pre-COVID times, it was different. Like, the telephonic round used to be virtual, and the on-sites happened in their office in Bangalore. But this time, everything was like exactly same. The interviews happen on Google Meet. You have access to a shared doc where you can choose your preferred language. It has like color indentation, it has a color highlighting and indentation as well. So you don't need to worry about the language if you're using Python. I used Python for all my interviews. So for Google, for interview, they only ask about data structures, and they test your communication skills as well. So the telephonic round was 45 minutes. The interview asked me like one DSA problem. We discussed everything about that problem. You need to write proper near to working code for that, and try to write and like try to write everything like in a proper way, like good variable names, like good function names, everything, and clean and dry coding principles. You should be following that. Like you should not repeat anything in your code, and try to like make different functions for every particular routine that you have. The 45-minute telephonic interview went really well, and after like a week I was invited for virtual on-sites. So the first virtual on-site was 45 minutes, like same as the telephonic one. It had like two DSA problems again, and the second and third on-sites were 60-minute rounds, 45 minutes DSA problem. They can ask one or two DSA problems, and 15 minutes it was googliness and leadership round, wherein they test if you are culturally fit for the organization, and they ask questions like what would you do if something happens in your team like this. So some HR type questions they ask. And this whole process is very long, and it took like the interviews took like 2 months to take place. And after the interviews, the recruiter sees your performance in all the interviews, and he can like move ahead to the next stage, or like directly like reject you after that. So after all the interviews, there is a hiring committee stage. The interviewers collect the feedback from the recruiter collect the feedback from interviews and asks some details from the interviewee as well, and makes a packet of that information and sends it to the hiring committee. So hiring committee can decide what to do with that. Hiring committee can also ask for extra on-sites as well in case they feel in the review is on the edge, and or they can give offer as well if or everything is fine. So like after the interviews they ask for information like your achievements, your projects. So if you have good projects, so do include them in that information. And I'd also recommend, if you have made some presentations, you can include that as well, links to your projects, that would be very good. And any achievements you have, you can include that in your information, and then the recruiter sends that. And like after the interviews, like after around more than a month, I was informed that I've cleared the interviews, and hiring committee has approved me to extend the offer. And that was a very like good feeling for me. So this was the whole process. Regarding the preparation tips, so I would recommend, first you should make a very good resume. Like you can there's a YouTube video by Google where you can check the tips which they give for resume making, so you can check that out. And after that, I recommend you to improve your data structures and algorithm skills, because Google asks about DSA only in the interviews. So you can practice on Geeks for Geeks, and you can like learn some concepts on GFG and practice on lead code for that. So I recommend solving random problems on lead code like before your interviews, and also setting up a timer, because you have only 45 minutes for your problems, and they generally ask one or two problems, one hard or two medium problems. So definitely set a timer while you are practicing on lead code. And also improve your like communication skills as well, because they do check their communication skills in the HR, like the googliness round. Also I'd recommend you like revising your revising your CS fundamentals like OOPS, DBMS, and OS. Some companies ask these as well, and if you have good projects, so that's a plus point in your interviews. You like in other companies, they have it's like DSA and some other and your CS fundamentals and your projects as well. So that I'd recommend. Yeah. So this was all about the experience and journey. Any questions anyone has?
Sir, I have one question. Sir, let's suppose if DSA is strong, but you're not much confident in competitive programming, then like you have DSA fundamentals very strong, then would it be comfortable, or you have to work on CP also?
Like if you do CP, that is good. But
Akshit, just a minute, JD Sharma here.
yes, sir.
Uh, Please, Divyam, anybody who comes up with a question,
Yes, sir.
please introduce yourself first. For the convenience of the people, you should introduce yourself and then you ask the question. It is for everyone. Please, Akshit, young beta.
Okay. Akshat.
So, what kind of questions are asked in the 45-minute question?
Like your general, like if you practice lead code, you'd see problems there, DSA problems. So they ask that only. Like if there's a hard problem, they would ask like one and or maybe two medium level problems. So DSA problems only and nothing else in Google interview. Vinayak.
Um, Vinayak, can we wait for the questions for a bit? Because we have two more speakers to go and we plan to keep the questions for the end. Okay, great. So, thanks a lot for sharing all that information, Akshit. That was really insightful. I'm sure the students gained a lot from your experience.
Well,
Next, we have Sakshi Mittal, who's a 2021 batch graduate from Electronics and Communication Engineering. She bagged an internship with Sourcefuse Technologies and got the PPO from the same. I'd like to invite Sakshi to please come and share her experience.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Sakshi. I graduated last year, that's 2021. I was an electronics and communication engineering student. So I'll talk about my journey, like how I started coding and like how was my journey until I got an offer from Google. So it starts from the very first year. So as I was an EC student, so there were not that much of courses, but still we had a course of C. And to be honest, I was very afraid to do coding because there were a lot of students who were already very familiar with these languages, and I find it very tough. So I thought, okay, let's try to just give it the best, and I'll not touch coding for the rest of my life. It will be just one semester. So as it ended, the second semester started, and my friends who were in CSE, they just told me that, okay, if you just think that you just had to do it in one semester, so you are wrong. You still would have like DSA and the other subjects in the coming third semester. So you have to study the basic languages. So that's when my journey actually started. And when I started coding, I actually find it like with the help of my friends, I really find out, okay, that's something interesting. So I started coding from there. Some of my friends introduced to me platforms like CodeShift and Codeforces, and I just started like randomly giving contests on them. So in my second year, I used platforms like InterviewBit and CodeShift to just prepare for the internship semester. So then the third semester, the like third year started, and the company started to come. So although I thought that I was prepared enough, I was able to clear the rounds of like almost every company for the online test. But I would screw up my interviews, and for the 1 month, I was without any internship. And finally, then I got an internship from Sourcefuse, but I still was not happy. And I thought, okay, maybe I just should continue giving more of tests and everything, and I should continue coding. So also thanks to CDGC, they also conduct something as finishing school in the second year. So I got acquainted to a lot of my seniors who actually took a lot of my mock interviews. So that really helped me a lot, because the feedback I got from there was like an eye opener for me. Some of them like very boldly told me that whatever you explained to us, we couldn't get that. So that was a turning point for me. So I thought, okay, it's just not that you know how to solve a question actually, but it's more of how well you are able to explain it as well. So that's where the communication skills actually come off. Again, my internship started in the fourth semester, and then my sixth semester, and then COVID hit, And I was very scared that okay, I'm preparing for the new companies, but what is the possibility that I'll get actually a good offer? So I thought, okay, let's skip it for a bit and just focus actually on the internship. So I quit coding at that point of time and just focused on my development and everything, the work I was doing at my internship. So I was able to beg a PPO from there. So I was like, okay, so now one thing is sorted. At least I would have a job at the end when I'll pass out from PEC. So I thought, okay, now I can do whatever I want. And I would say that COVID was a blessing in disguise for me, I would say, in that sense, because as there was nothing much to do, I thought that okay, this is something I love to do, and I want a really good placement. So let's start focusing on the weak points and let's start focusing on the DSA. So I started preparing from my seventh semester. And I was doing some interviews with different companies, getting rejections from some, and to some I was not very comfortable. Like even after getting the offer, I was like, okay, maybe I am not very interested in working in the company. In the eighth semester, so one day, so there was an opening for 2021 grads, and many of my friends were applying at that point of time. So I didn't apply because I thought, okay, that's Google, and I'm really not prepared at that point of time. So somewhere in December, I just thought, okay, let's maybe I can apply to this opening. Nobody would know, like even if I would have applied, what would be the worst case scenario, that I won't get a reply. So I applied in December, and I was interviewing with different companies at that point of time. And in May, so after 5 months, one of the recruiters contacted me actually, and he said me that okay, my resume looks good and they want to interview me for an SD position at Google. So yeah, from there my journey for the interview process started at Google. So after this I'll talk about that. So it started in May. So back then there used to be like one online tests. So for me, that was skipped because the recruiter directly contacted me, and we had a discussion for like 10-15 minutes where he briefed me everything about the process, and he wanted to know my background. So yeah, we had a discussion, and then I was set up for a telephonic round, which was approximately 45 minutes. In that, I think, yeah, 2 questions were discussed. So then I was passed on to the on-sites round. So basically, the on-sites rounds actually happen at Google offices, but as it was a COVID time, so all the rounds actually happened on Google Meet. So there were 4 rounds, which were based purely on the DSA. The only thing we discussed in those 45 minutes was DSA questions. Like the interviewer would come and he'll directly give you a question, and you have to discuss that and propose a solution, and then you just optimize everything, and when you both agree to a solution, you have to code. So after 4 rounds, I had one more round, that was googliness round. So basically in that they checked like how culturally fit you are for the company. And after all these 5 rounds, so your recruiter would then see like the performance from all of your interviews, and would decide that whether they want to move to the HC. So HC is the hiring committee at Google. So this is one factor that distinguish Google from other companies. So even if you pass all the 5 rounds, they have a committee called hiring committee, which would then examine like all of the feedbacks from the interviews, and they make a hire or a no hire decision. So once you pass that stage, so I was able to clear that, and then finally I got an offer from Google. So this process started on 5th of May, and my result came on 12th of July. So that was good 3 months period. So yeah, Google rounds generally take a lot of time. So you have to be a bit patient in that sense. So yeah, that was my interview process at Google. Some of the things that I would say that that are really important while interviewing specifically to Google is that they generally judge you on 4 parameters. So one is your communication skills, The second is your code quality. I think one of the things that Google really focuses on, and also like I have been working there for the last 5 months, so now I can relate to why they focus so much on the code quality. So the second factor they really stress upon is the code quality. Also, one thing different from the platforms you generally code on is that they give you a Google sheet, uh, and you have to. So there is a inbuilt platform, and the only feature they provide there is indentation and color coding. Everything else you have to take care while coding on that platform. So that's one thing. Also, something like variable naming and making your code more modular and reusable are some of the points that you have to, like, you can read about the best practices, like how to structure your code. But that's something that Google really takes into account while just judging their candidates. That's the second criteria. The third criteria is actually your speed. So how much time you're able to complete how like the number of questions. So that's one more important thing that they called efficacy. And the fourth point is your obviously your DSA knowledge. So these are the four pillars that Google actually judges you on. Yeah, talking about the resources that I used during my preparation was, I would say, like first, one should get their basics really clear. And I would say I was fortunate enough that I was having friends who taught me about basic DSA, and also I was having a course regarding that in my fourth semester. So I was good with the basics. For doing coding, I use platforms like Codeforces, CodeShift, and InterviewBit as well, and LeetCode. So one thing that I loved about LeetCode was the discussion session. So not only you can just check that your solution is correct, but you can see other people's code and get to know like how people are solving. So it just broaden out your mind. Other than that, yeah, these were pretty much the resources I used during my preparation. Also, I just want to add like one or two more things. Like if I want to suggest to the first and second year, it's that it's okay if you start a bit late. I also started a bit late in my journey, but it's if you are like if you feel that you are behind anyone, or that okay, you have wasted a lot of time, so that's really not the case. You can buck up anytime, but obviously it's always advisable the early you will start, the better results you can get. So yeah, that would be one thing I would really like to point out. Yeah, handing over to Ishika.
Great. Thanks a lot, Sakshi. That was very insightful. Finally, we have Kshitij Kumar, who is also a 2021 batch graduate from Electrical and Electronics Engineering. He did an internship with Geeks for Geeks and worked as a problem setter there before he got placed in Google. Kshitij, over to you.
Hi everyone, I'm Kshitij and thanks for inviting me for talking to you. And as Jessica just said, I graduated last year from PEC and have been working at Google for about 6 months now. So hopefully I will give you some tips about how you can prepare for Google and other companies as well. Now, the process for Google is slightly different from what I see in most other companies. So I'll try to highlight the differences as I go along. And so let us start from the top. When I was in fourth year, I actually had a bad CGPA. It was somewhere around 6.2, 6.3. I don't remember actually now. But the problem here was that a lot of the companies, I did not even clear the cutoff. So that is actually kind of painful experience. I don't know if you have heard this, but sometimes people say that do not care about your CGPA. This might actually be true for Google. I can say that because it worked out for me, but I don't think that is actually a good advice. So keep that in mind. Now, the thing that Google cares about the most is the quality of your code that you write in the interviews. I'm actually an electrical engineer, so I did not have too many subjects in my actual course that helped me with this. But when I was in first year, there was a subject called Introduction to C Programming. If I'm correct, it has now been replaced by Introduction to C++, which is a good thing actually because you'll learn about data structures a bit more. And when I did that course, okay, Python. Okay, Python is good as well. When I did that course, I actually got a sort of overconfidence because I just I was just good at it. I really enjoyed that subject, and that overconfidence was really my downfall for some time because over the next 2 years, I almost didn't practice at all. And then comes the third year, the first company that came to college was Microsoft for an internship, and the moment I gave that test, it just blew me away. I could not solve a single question, and I realized how behind I am behind everyone else. So over the next 1.5 month, I basically did not give any tests because I just practiced the hell out of problem solving. I used websites like Geeks for Geeks and LeetCode, basically these two. I advise that you can start at Geeks for Geeks when you're starting because it has a lot of you know articles about data structures and algorithms that are actually quite helpful. And then towards the end of the internship cycle, I eventually got an internship at Geeks for Geeks itself, which was kind of ironical. But my internship was as a problem setter. Now, you will also actually the thing is, Geeks for Geeks comes for hiring people towards the end of the cycle. So you might think that it is not a very good company as it comes towards the end, and it does not give a big, I mean, too much money as well. But the thing was that working as a problem setter is a good internship as it really helps you develop concepts. Um, During those 6 months, I studied a lot of problems, created problems, and basically gave me an idea about how problems are set. So that was actually quite helpful for me. And then coming to the process, the first round of Google is just a test. It is basically like every other company, 1 or 2 problems might be slightly different for other years. I'm not sure about that. But then the next round, which contains interviews. The second round is one interview, which is always online, and the third round are on-site interviews, which will be on the Google Office if situations with COVID aren't too bad. Um, as Akshit and Sakshi has told you, these interviews only include data structures and algorithm-based problems. So while it is important to do other development related projects, these aren't the main part that they focus on during the interviews. And the most important things that you have to take care of while these interviews is, first of all, you won't be coding on an IDE. So it will be a little challenging, but I guess you should practice a little this where you are not using things like autocomplete while coding. And another important thing is that if you have a background in competitive programming, I did not have it, but I have noticed that some people do. And in competitive programming, the only focus is on speed. However, this is not the case when writing code in interviews because they really judge you based on how readable your code is. Like if you're giving single digit names to variables, and that really makes things confusing if your indentation and parentheses aren't good, that causes troubles if I'm dividing the code into functions. So all of these small things matter because, and as you write the code, you also have to keep on explaining to the interviewer to, I mean, to demonstrate that how good you are in understanding the concept. There is actually a rule that I learned that I heard some years ago. It's the 90-10 rule. It's that when you practice for solving coding problems, you have to spend 10% of the time in learning about stuff from reading it, and you spend 90% of the time actually trying to do it. Even if you can't do it, keep trying again and again, keep thinking, just try to develop the concept on your own. If you still fail, uh, just use a little bit more time to read it from somewhere, to read solutions, but just never read the solution in one go. try to read part of it and then try to come up with yourself. So basically 10% of the part you read, 90% of the part you try to think about yourself. So that is an important rule, which will help you develop these concepts. And once in interviews, it's as Sakshi explains, so 4 or 5 interviews on the on-site round. All of these are just data structures and algorithm-based problems. And finally, in the final stage, they ask for things like resume, mark sheet, and any projects that you might have done, any apps, websites, apps, or any machine learning models. That is totally up to you. You can decide whatever project you want to do, and it's always helpful, but it's not exactly the main criteria. And this is something which is different in Google and other companies. The interviews don't generally include these projects, but these might be a part of the hiring committee stage, where they judge you based on their performance in the interviews and then on the projects that you have made. And finally, yeah, you can also participate in competitions like I'm forgetting the name for it. You can participate in competitions at Code Chef or the Google competitions. That will go a long way in developing your concepts. So that's about it from my side. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Kshitij. It's really inspiring how you turn things around. I hope we can all learn something from it. Now we'll open the forum for discussion. I can see a couple of questions here in the chat box, so we'll probably get those answered first. If you people have any follow-up questions, please feel free to ask. First,
Ishita, if you are going for the question, I will just happen to hear all what Kshitij has said. So
yes,
if I can comment for 2 minutes before you start.
Yes, sir, please.
Great. I think I was scheduled for some meeting, but once I started listening, one, I love to listen the second, and then Kshitij came over. I listened all the 3 speakers today. There are really some takeaways from these all discussions which have been undertaken with you. But I think there is one thing that I really want to endorse to all my first year and second year students. What Kshitij has clearly enumerated about the requirement of your academic grades. So generally, just try to understand the structure of the society is some way going in a way that grades doesn't matter. But may I assure you, I am much more experienced than you all. I have seen much more part of the world than you people have. Believe me, it is very, very important. I do not say that you do everything for the grade, but absolutely there is no space that you can think anything leaving that behind. Nothing in academics in the scenario in which we are, nothing can be more important than academic grade. So please stick to it. Keep it in your priority first. Whether you are a good player, you want to play, whether you are a good musician, go to a music club, whether you are a good speaker in a SAS club, or you are involved in any activity in any club, those are very, very important. I do not want to demean all these, but try to understand these academics are very important. Why? Because most of the things at my institute and as well as at other institute also, they are based on directly grade. There are very few companies nowadays, as Kshitij said, that he sat for the Microsoft. And then he really come to know that what level of coding he knows at that point, well, after a span of 2 years. Then what he can do in next 1.5 months, is that possible? But that knowing that issue, these are very important, that's possible because Microsoft generally come with very liberal grade requirement. Some people, some good company come with a very, very high and strict grade requirements. As a head CDGC, we always try to persuade the student. There are a lot more Kshitij in my institute who are not actually looking into grades and who are working aggressively for a given profile that they want to be in, but try to understand, just to get an opportunity in a big company, you first have to be in the group which is being initially selected. So please try to give the due weightage to your grades also. That's from my side, Ishita. I think I have now the next meeting. I'll be leaving, but were really great. I thank all the speakers to share their views with my students. Ishita, please, you carry on with things. Thank
Thanks a
you.
lot, sir.
Thank you all. Bye bye.
Thank you, sir. So moving on with the questions, we have the first one from Himanshu, who's asking whether or not we should focus on HTML, CSS, SQL, and between front end and back end. So please.